So Rene and Otto will present an overview of the right-of-way services program and what we permit and why, and with particular focus on street, lane, and sidewalk obstructions for work in Raleigh's downtown, as well as how pedestrian accessibility can be maintained during construction. Rene and Noah will also discuss specific programs such as integrating public art into the work zones, and they will lead us on a short walking tour afterward to the different work areas downtown. So with this, thank you, and please welcome Rene and Noah.
Thank you, everybody. I really appreciate you guys coming out. I'm very nervous right now at this point. I'm going to try to loosen up a little bit. This job has put me in the realm of public speaking, which I was mortified of. In today's UDC lecture, we're going to talk about downtown construction and pedestrian accommodation. We're going to go over right-of-way services, who we are, permitting, who, what, and why. Why do we have the permitting? We're going to provide you with some guidelines, which are useful documents, of course. Downtown construction, we're going to particularly address that in this case. Go over some common protection devices, and also examples, pictures of good and bad right-of-way closures or sidewalk closures. And I just want to put everybody at ease. The bad examples were not done in Raleigh. So I just want to point that out. And also, as Leslie has pointed out, we're going to go briefly over public art, how we're trying to integrate it into work zones. Afterwards, there will be question and answering, and also during the tour, you can also ask questions while we go to different sites. The tour is going to take approximately 30 minutes, and we're going to go to 3 different sites. There's going to be one over on Martin Street and Wilmington Street, and we're going to meander down towards on Wilmington Street, go past the new sidewalk that has just been finished this morning for the Exchange Plaza, and also check out one of the containers that has been put up for downtown construction. Sorry. So, right-of-way services, we started in 2015. It was a program that the city manager's office and supervisors felt it was necessary to bring together different programs throughout the city. Noah Otto right here is the coordinator over inspections, and he has 4 inspectors under him. Myself, I'm the coordinator over permitting, so I do the review permitting of any sidewalk closure that comes into the city. We do review street lane sidewalk closures for construction mainly, any work impacting the right-of-way, and with this program we do process development, outreach, and handle complaints and inspections also. So who are we doing this permitting for? We're doing it. We get requests from developers, contractors, other city departments such as stormwater, construction and design. NCDOT sends us requests. State departments and other utility companies such as Time Warner, AT&T, Google, and Progress Energy and PSNC. The big thing about right-of-way services, it's not me making any of the major decisions. This is handled as a joint effort among multiple divisions throughout the city. We involve police, event management, public affairs, development services for permitting, transit, who deals with the bus system, ParkLink, which I know some of you are familiar with downtown parking, and also we started to incorporate the Raleigh Arts and the inspections department. So again, we go over any construction-related items in the right-of-way, which are full street closures and lane closures. That program right there used to be in a different division in Public Works, handled by somebody completely different. Then with right-of-way services, it was all incorporated under our right-of-way services shop. We used to deal with sidewalk detours, pedestrian accommodations, and other associated structures that come with that. For example, when you put up scaffolding, you will require a building permit also. Some of you may have known that, or some of you, this may be something new right there. But so those are the different departments and divisions that get involved. We permit temporary dumpsters in the right-of-way, which you will see further up on Fayetteville Street, but also for any private residential or so. We also deal with the storage devices, the pods. We deal with house moves when a contractor has to move a house through the city or work with moving it from one lot in the city to another and do the house setup. Fiber optics installation is the big one. I know some of you are familiar with that. We've had a major increase in fiber optics installation over the last 3 or 4 months now that a new provider is in town and other companies are trying to get ahead of the game also. On the other side, driveway and sidewalk replacements for any existing sidewalk or for any driveway. We do the permitting for that, and also do utility service installation. Water, sewer, when PSNC has to run a new gas main, we conduct the permitting for that. So why do we all this permitting right there? Main thing is provide ADA accessibility for pedestrians and ensure safety of citizens and contractors in a work zone. Our permit application has general provisions on the application itself that once you approve, you can look through. And also, there are hyperlinks to the MUTCD and ADA, which is the American with Disability Act, and the Manual on Uniform Traffic Control. Another thing we want to do is avoid conflicting work areas. When you come in for a permit, sometimes I unfortunately have to say, hey, look, someone else is working there. We want to avoid that there's conflicting contractors out there that get on top of each other, or thus impeding traffic. With any full lane closure, we provide notification to emergency services and also Wake County Fire Department and police. So when they have to route their vehicles through the city and they know there's a detour, the 911 center automatically adjusts for that after we provide that notification. Another thing is the public notification of work areas, where we're working with Google Ways, Public Affairs in regards to full closures when there's one occurring, and also the GIS application, which I'm going to show you on the next page. This presentation will also be emailed out if you're interested, and that GIS application is a hyperlink to an application that we created that shows any closure that's within the downtown area as a point, and also as a line if there's a larger project that's going on. This red line, for example, is a mulching operation that Parks and Recreation is doing over the next month right here. In that application, if you click on one of the icons, you get useful information right there in regards to who the contractor is, what's the duration of this, and what kind of work is proposed. This will be made available to the public. Now, I want to just comfort everyone, no phone numbers are on this, so that way someone doesn't go straight to the contractor and call them. We act as a liaison between the contractor and citizens if there are complaints. Permitting wise, so we have inspections, and Noah Otto is going to talk about this right here.
Again, I want to say thanks for everybody coming out. Just a quick note before I go into this from my side. The main reason why we do what we're doing is for partnerships. You know, we want to build, why we're here today, to build partnerships with the community, with the organizations working in our right-of-way, so that we can better communicate and better serve the people that we represent and that you provide services to. So in our inspections, we got 4 right-of-way inspectors. They are constantly riding around, checking on facilities that are being upgraded, checking on the lane closures and sidewalk closures for compliance with city codes. And that's the main reason, is to ensure the work zone compliance and to ensure that they're properly installed correctly. A large part of what we do has to do with, as I said, going back to communication and dealing with the public, is complaints. So we respond to citizens' concerns on a daily basis. Part of that is the conflict resolution in the field, dealing with the inspectors and the field representatives that are out there every day doing the work and installing the traffic control or sidewalk closures. And then we also, just kind of a side note to bring it up, with repetitive concerns. You know, we're there to kind of maybe help you find ways to avoid things that we see or continually to happen over and over again. Guidelines for ADA, American with Disabilities Act. That's our main concern here, is that we want to make sure that we're providing a good access where we have a lot of foot traffic in downtown areas, high urban areas, which we're having more and more. It's getting to be beautiful weather. We're having a lot of people who are walking on the sidewalks and things like that. We want to make sure we're providing them the right type of accessibility on our sidewalks. This is something, as Rene said earlier, this isn't from Raleigh, but this is an example of something we would not like to see in our right-of-way on our sidewalks. There's nothing here showing pedestrians where to go or how to do it safely. So we make sure we provide access to them that is safe. MUTCD, Manual Uniform Traffic Control Devices. Many of you are aware of it already. But many times, I myself and the inspectors like to brush up on this to make sure we are up to date, that we're providing the correct minimum standards for lane closures and for sidewalk closures. We did bring some handouts with us back in the back, some flip books for those of you who may need to kind of brush up or kind of get some more information on it. As well as we've got some Making Great Strides work that Rene has worked on, and Paul. And we'd like to pass it out. You can pass it out now.
So Noah has brought up the document for Making Great Strides. What you saw previously was the ADA requirements and MUTCD requirements, which are, MUTCD is a document, some of you are familiar with it, it's a few hundred pages. The small section in there, what we basically did with Making Great Strides, we took what is written from a legal standpoint in codes and put it into a real-world use. Probably about 5 years ago, that picture that you saw previously right there, that may have been common in Raleigh or so. But also, once we started reviewing plans for pedestrian detours, and once construction started again, contractors and engineers were asking us, well, what do you want us to do? So, what do you want us to do? So from a review standpoint, what do you want us to show on the plans? Once the document was requested, it started in Public Works under Bradley Kimbrell. He was the first one to tackle that project, and now he has moved up to be the manager of the Customer Service Center. So we had a small delay, and then it was passed to me once we started right-of-way services. But this document right here that you're looking at, it's not a compilation that was done strictly by me. A lot of the other reviewers that were involved from our shop and a lot of other divisions were involved to make this happen right there. And it's basically it translates the ADA and the MUTCD into real-world application. And you can also find that on RaleighNC.gov, this document right there in a PDF format. It's rather large, but if you do the keyword strides, it will pop open. So these guidelines right here, within the document itself, we have definitions and terminology. What do certain things mean? What does ADA mean? What does PROWAG mean? We give planning and design considerations. Before anyone starts working on a site, what is around you? Are there bike racks? Are there street trees? Anything like that needs to be taken into consideration because this is all public infrastructure that could get damaged during construction. We give examples of different protective devices, such as Type 3 barricades, water-filled barriers that can be utilized, show some safety measures that were also put up, and do some examples of those detours that have been put into place. And these were a joint collaboration among the reviewers and also among the contractor put in place. So for downtown construction itself, it's different departments. Again, like I said, we don't do this by ourselves. There are different departments involved. ParkLink, for example, if you submit a permit and you need to park your contractor truck or do a laydown area for materials, you would go through them and we would initiate that. We have transit. There are multiple bus stops throughout the city. People are used to going to a certain bus stop. Anytime that is moved for construction, there has to be an alert sent out. We have events management who deals strictly with events. They do not deal with any downtown construction or any construction period. So they're the group that puts on the races, any farmers markets or anything like that. NCDOT, a lot of these streets are NCDOT maintained. We work with NCDOT to ensure that the contractor has their encroachments. We want to check ahead of that time. And also police, of course, for some of the enforcement aspects that happen downtown. What are some challenges for downtown construction? Well, you have a zero lot line for some of these buildings, so it makes it difficult to lay out an internal work area. Material storage area, contractor parking, transit stops again, like I mentioned previously, trees, pay stations. All the pay stations that are taken up during construction with parking spaces have to be accounted for. And also adjacent businesses. This is a big ticket item, making sure when you do construction mid-block that you provide an access to adjacent businesses so you don't cut them off. And of course, the big ticket item is pedestrian accessibility. How does a handicapped person, how can they get to one point to the other? And it doesn't have to be just handicapped, it can be anyone. How do you get from one point to the other safely? So I'm going to talk real brief about right-of-way permits. It's basically it goes back to the notification right there. We require a right-of-way permit for any of the items such as window washing, facade maintenance, alteration of interior spaces when a contractor has to get materials in and out, and then also for high-rise construction. So it starts off with a smaller item, window washing. There can be a daily item right there that will need to be accounted for with a permit, so to ensure that proper detours are set up, all the way to high-rise construction. Plans are may be required depending on the impact of this. So if someone is doing 4-hour window washing work, we will still need a permit, but we may not require a plan. For larger work areas such as interior alteration, if the right-of-way has to be utilized, or for high-rise construction, we do need to see plans, and we work with all the different departments to get it into place. Of course, all vehicular and pedestrian accommodations have to be per ADA and MUTCD, and plans and permits must be approved prior to the start of work. That's a big ticket item right there. Make sure you have all your permits in place, because what you don't want to happen is you start your work area, you don't have all your work permits in place, and another inspector comes out and shuts the job down. The common protective devices that I mentioned before, the most common one is the Type 3 barricade with a tap rail. And the tap rail is a leading edge between 2 inches and 8 inches on the bottom of that. What that tap rail does, when a visually impaired person has a walking stick, they feel basically with that stick along the sidewalk. When they hit that bottom rail right there, they know, oh, I'm alerted, I need to make sure I get around that right there. Signage. Going back to communication, signage is the best way to let someone know ahead what is, that there's an obstruction. Another big ticket item, as I mentioned previously, subway entrance right here. Make sure you let folks know that adjacent businesses are open. Somebody gets to a work site like that, they're like, oh, I can't eat there now. Right here, water-filled barriers, which provides a great separation of vehicles and pedestrians. Now, the caveat here is that water-filled barrier has to be filled to be effective. Right here is a good example that we did at North Wilmington and Peace Street right here. Right here are the state buildings. Right here was a transit stop that had to be shifted further up the street right here, so this construction can occur and we can use that as a pedestrian corridor. That project is now finished, and it worked with great success, I would think. Cones and barrels can be used on a small scale. Please do not do this right here. I've actually had someone ask me yesterday if they can just put out some cones with a tape, and unfortunately that will not alert anyone that's visually impaired that something's going on. They may end up running into it. Another one of the detours, this is probably the first detour that we've done. When the restaurant up at Salisbury and Haagen Street, when the contractor came in and started doing some alterations, they shut the sidewalk down. Now, downtown is big on pedestrian, but right up there in that area, there are also council members that are very aware of what's going on. So the questions came up, why are we shutting the sidewalk down? Why can nobody get around? There are businesses on the side, no one can get to them. So the review team worked with the contractor to get a platform established in a parking area right here to provide a detour. I don't know if some of you remember this detour right here. It was in place for at least over a year, I would think. This right here is something we want to avoid, that people just walk along the side of any fencing. Now, the thing we don't know is if there was signage ahead. Some folks will take the shorter path and walk around a barricade that you put up. But you have done everything you can to protect the pedestrian. Right, here's another picture of the sidewalk of the detour on Haagen Street, how it was utilized. The barricade was up right here with a little tap rail right here on the bottom, and pedestrians were able to get around. Right, here's a sidewalk detour that's leading into a container that I will speak about in a little bit. And for some of you folks, you do work outside of downtown also, and just one thing I want to point out, this was a shot at Linden Road in Creedmoor. The big thing is, if you have to set up work vehicles or do any work in the sidewalk or so, set up signage that is sidewalk closed ahead here and put up a barricade at your work area. A cone, unfortunately, does not suffice. This is a big ticket item also around school areas and any large pedestrian generators in this type of environment. This right here, please don't do this either. Another overhead protection device is scaffolding. Scaffolding is one of the, it may be more costly, but for projects that don't last for 18 months or so, this is a great way to protect pedestrians. The plywood right here that's shown served as a tap rail also, so when a visually impaired person, they were able to feel their way into this. This was set up for some window cleaning that was done, and what you don't see here is when the spray came down, it was around the same time, I think, as the Legionnaire's disease was discovered for the rooftop HVAC devices. We asked them, we ensured that people weren't walking into that, but a tarp was put up right here to protect pedestrians from walking by. I mentioned earlier shipping containers. So a couple of years ago, one of the restaurants that was on Glenwood South, the review team was trying to figure out different ways. How do we route pedestrians through here? And the contractor, again, had a small area to utilize. Shipping containers, the contractor suggested and worked with the review team and said, hey, why don't we do a shipping container that is hollowed out right here and use it as a pedestrian path? Now this one is great for high-rise projects. So it provides great protection from falling objects. It makes pedestrians feel safe, which is the main item, especially in a large pedestrian-generated area. Some of the features that were done in the containers is emergency access. So at every break between containers, they put an opening that in case something does happen inside, emergency access can be provided. Overhead lighting is required for night when folks walk through it, which also work with the inspections department to get an electrical permit for that. And also I want to say all these containers also have to have engineer certification that it will protect from falling items, which is handled by the inspections department by the building division. Another thing that some of these, and you will see some of these examples in making great strides, some of the contractors put handrails in here. Also smooth surfaces. If somebody has to come in here with a wheelchair, they don't start hopping through basically. So they try to make all the edges smooth. First container detour was utilized on Glenwood South. They did the setup, and then what I heard was that they were great for the pedestrians out there. After that, they followed at North Hills, on Hillsborough Street itself, and also in downtown. And downtown is going to be one of the ones that we will visit later. Leslie mentioned public art. Public art is something that citizens initiated that by one of the projects that happened downtown to, like I said right here, make a work zone look less like a war zone. So it's another item we're doing over at CAM, where the Dillon project and also Union Station is getting ready to go up. The city is partnering up with the contractors to make sure we can spruce some of these areas up. But it can be initiated by the contractor or citizens who will work with Kim Curry Evans in Parks and Recreation. So one thing we want to do is any work zone can be an art project. Right here, North Hills East, for example, had the containers right here. And when they got done with it, they painted them the ACC colors for North Carolina. Another one we did a couple of weeks ago was the downtown business right here. They wanted to repaint the parklet that was out here, so we issued a lane closure permit for the artist to set up right here and do this right here, do the painting on that. Are there any questions? You can reach us at these phone numbers right here. Now again, this is going to be emailed out. Right-of-way services at raleighndc.gov is a general email box where you submit all your permits to, and you can also ask questions through that. It's monitored daily for the workload. If you also come up with some questions later, we can start our tour and you can ask questions throughout that. That dumpster, we work with ParkLink to get there, and the contractor is paying on a daily basis. So what they do is they provide the time frame, pay for the time frame at ParkLink, I approve the permit. So then they have it for that time being. The big caveat for dumpsters in the downtown area, during any event, that dumpster has to be removed completely from the area where the event occurs. Yeah, louder. That dumpster has to be completely removed from the area where the event occurs due to safety measures by police and also the event management.
At night?
No, during the event. Yeah, during the event. And at night or anything for visibility, we want some markings on the dumpster, reflective tapes or so people can see that. All right, we're getting ready to come up on one of the work areas right there, utilizing the construction fence right there. They provided matting over the hose right there that's coming from the meter, so that way folks can pass over it. On the other side, you're going to see an example of one of the scaffolding tunnels that's covered with tarp. One of the big ticket items on that one was that we had worked with the Department of Administration. They required a no parking zone out there. So we said no contractor cannot park there unless you get a letter from the DOA right there to us. So that way we were able to allow them to park right there in that area. If you want to start, we'll wait on the other side. Well, it helps people to see it. That's the thing, that's what we try to emphasize in Making Great Strides. Hey, here's what it looks like.
Yeah.
Again, here's a great example of a tunnel right here with scaffolding. And like it was pointed out in the presentation, the plywood right here serves as protection, also serves as a tap rail for the visually impaired right there so they can feel their way along. So if we want to start walking down that way, and we're going to get to the other side. Looking good. Okay. All right. So guys, right here is one of the work areas that we had yesterday. This whole section was blocked off right here, and the detour was established for a few days. Come right around here across the vault, come on the back side here, come back out. And we're going to look at one of the plywood bases that the contractor has put in place so they can do this installation, also the other installation over there, which is something you'll see right over in that section right there. We'll look at that. But this was actually luckily finished this morning, so everyone can judge the concrete work. I hope it works. But yeah, we had to work with the contractor to get the detour wrapped right around here so they can do the work also. We're very aware that you have to do work out here. It's not that we're saying, no, you cannot do that, but we have to come up with methods to accommodate that. If we go right here. So this right here was a shorter detour. You saw something similar in the examples that was done in Haagen Street over a long stretch right here. Here was a short detour that the contractor utilized so they can install all this right here. And it's worked pretty well. Of course, weather's going to affect it, but what we look for is that contractors maintain their detours so that way they'll be accessible to everyone. We're going to keep walking down, and that'll be the last stop on our tour. Except the final stop over there. We're going to meet the contractor down there for one of the container examples that we presented. Yeah. Yeah, if you guys want to come on in here, I'm hoping you can hear. So this is one of the examples of a container utilized for downtown construction right here. Mike Dernbacher right here, he is the main contractor, and he's going to speak real brief about it. One thing you see again that we pointed out, there's lighting in here. We have the emergency access points right over there, and also for ventilation you have these openings right here. But Mike, if you want to speak some about this.
You only really have a couple options for overhead protection in the downtown scenario. One would be the scaffolding scenario, which you see from time to time, but for the amount of footage that we needed to do, we have this street and Blunt Street mimicked. So we had, half of a block times 2, and the cost with the erection and the dismantle of the scaffolding just for a 24-month project just is astronomical when compared to facilitating the use of some type of container with minor modifications to your typical shipping container, which you can buy from just about anybody. You can get them on the ground pretty much instantly, and the framing that we had to do to connect container took 1 week. So as far as erection and dismantle, they're similar, if not better, to a traditional scaffold system, and you're not paying the monthly rent because we actually just purchased them. So, and everybody wants them at the end of the job because my steel guy is going to be taking these 3 off my hands, and an underground contractor took the other one. So essentially getting them gone at the end of the job is free for me, and getting them in the beginning of the job, it ultimately costs approximately 25% of what a traditional scaffold system would have cost us through here. Not to mention any type of work we would have to do to deck a scaffolding system, because we had to rip out all of the sidewalk and curb and gutter during the job for underground utilities to get in. So these cover any of that. It's a full system, and very, very, in the grand scheme of overhead protection, it worked really well for us.
Great. No, thank you so much for coming. And you would be able to utilize that again at other jobs also if you would want to,
if
correct?
If we had another project going downtown in an urban scenario, we would have taken these right over to it.
Great.
And your traditional towing company can pick them up and put them down, and you know, we've already had the modifications to them, so they'd be great to use and reuse on any other projects you had.
Great.
It was well worth everything we did for them.
I'm glad it worked out for
Yeah,
you. Thank you, sir.
Take care,
All right,
everybody.
thank you. Thank you so much. There's easy access right here for fire department. The edges right here were smoothed out so people in wheelchairs were able to pass by. So, and the question is, how would a handicapped person pass along here? So unfortunately, and we hate that this happened, but throughout the construction, throughout all the weathering, there used to be a nice section where a handicapped person could access through here. The container is actually going to be dismantled within the next 2 weeks right here. So what happens here in this case, unfortunately, it would have to go across, come back this way to enter through the container. It's a very unfortunate incident that has to happen, but during the construction, we require that the contractor maintain accessibility at all times.
Well, thank you all so much for coming. That was a wonderful walk through the city to learn about pedestrian accessibility and construction zones. Join us next month for our urban sketching workshop. Thank you.